Noodles and the O-Dog on TSN 1050.
All right, here we go. OverDrive off and running. TSN 1050 on the TSN app, your home smart speaker, up on TSN 4, up on YouTube Live. Brian Hayes and Dave Feschuk in here this afternoon. What's happening, Dave?
What's going on, Hayes?
Well, I'm excited for a ball game tonight. I'm excited to track the whereabouts of Kawhi Leonard in Toronto, right? Like, Kawhi's just slowly, even though he's not officially a Raptor yet, I like that it's almost like poker. It creates a buzz. You're like, is that real? Is that we actually see that guy? You know, he was up at the National Bank Open last night, and people analyzing how much fun he's having and when he left and how it looked. It's good to have Kawhi back in town, even though it's still somewhat unofficial.
Oh, it's very unofficial, Hayes, but you're right. He's a man about town. He's been to the tennis. We saw him at a Blue Jays game. We've seen him at Kyle Lowry's retirement number press conference. I mean, the guy's been around. And to your point, is he having fun? Well, he is the fun guy.
He is the fun guy. And when the fun guy is in attendance, you're likely going to have a good time. And I'm curious, you know, I'd love to get maybe an answer for someone that was either at the tennis last night or that's seen him around. Like, how many people are trying to spark up a stop and chat with Kawhi? Because I just don't picture Kawhi being that type, you know. Like, and most celebrities aren't, and most high-profile athletes certainly are not. You know, a lot of them have security around them and all that. And the majority of people are more nervous than anything when they see a guy like Kawhi, and they just kind of might wave at him. But I got to think someone with no boundaries just stormed right up to him and said, what's the deal? Like, is this thing going down? Like, I guess what I'm asking, Dave, because it feels like the Raptors, the Clippers, and Adam Silver, like ownership, have an idea of where this is going. Do you think Kawhi knows where this is going? Do you think he is privy to the information in terms of what could be coming his way?
Well, I think he knows how the board man got paid,
Yeah.
if you catch my drift, right?
Yes.
I think he's well aware of what has transpired here, so he must know that Wachtell Lipton, the independent, so-called independent, I'm using air quotes as I say independent because they are hired by the NBA to do this investigation. He must know what they've uncovered. He's been interviewed by them. He's certainly heard about other people being interviewed by them. But the one thing we don't know, and nobody knows, to be fair, Hayes, is how does Adam Silver see this? How is Adam Silver going to rule on this? I don't think that is public information yet. I don't think that is 100% assured to anybody yet. And so there is, you know, that uneasiness that maybe Adam Silver is going to come down harder than everybody thinks, and who knows what that's going to mean.
Well, that's very true because he's dealing with power brokers on both sides. Like, he is supposed to be able to control the owners, even though he technically works for the owners. But the best commissioners, David Stern, Gary Bettman is famous for this. They basically lead the pack. You know, like they kind of tell the owners what the plan is and how we're going to execute it. And not that there isn't pushback from owners for different reasons, but predominantly these are business people, and I get the impression the commissioner goes, just stay with me here, and we're going to make a lot of money. You know, and that's kind of the way it goes. With CBA negotiations, with, you know, a bevy of different items, this is clearly very unique, but Steve Ballmer is also very different than, you know, a corporation that owns a team. You know, like if it was MLSE, that was the shoes on the other foot, be a very different operation, I would think, from Silver's perspective. Ballmer is larger than life. He's louder than anybody else, and he's got more money than anybody else. So, you know, how he handles that is one thing, but the other power broker he's dealing with is not necessarily Kawhi. It's the Players Association. And that's one, they don't look at him as, you know, like someone that's superior to them. You know, the Players Association, they look at the owners as equals. Now, the owners do not look at the players as equals, but the Players Association, when it comes to Adam Silver, certainly will. So that is an interesting pie chart. Like, what is a bigger concern for him in terms of the blowback that Ballmer's going to give him if he goes over the top with punitive damages towards him or punitive punishments towards him, or the Players Association. And I would think it's the Players Association, Dave. Like, I think that one, they might be goading on Silver, be like, go ahead, try it, man. Like, try it. We're coming for you, because they can't wait for a fight with Adam Silver. They die for kind of that type of activity.
Well, I think you're exactly right, Hayes. I think you saw that story that ESPN had, a week plus ago, which to me looked like saber rattling from the Players Association, in which Players Association sources leaked to ESPN that this thing could drag on into 2027. And why would it drag on into 2027? Because the Players Association made it very clear that they would be very interested in contesting any ruling against Kawhi Leonard that they didn't like. If they felt there was an unfair punishment being doled out here without sufficient evidence, they were prepared to drag this out as long as they could possibly drag it out in terms of grievances and appeals. So you're right about that. I think that's a very real thing. The commissioner has talked about how he's got very broad powers here in terms of suspensions and taking away draft picks and the rest of it. I think the Players Association is pointing to the CBA and saying, actually, the CBA says this, and this, and you can't do anything other than what's in the CBA. That's a bit of a debate. Mm-hmm. I think the commissioner could say, hey, these guys are hurting the game here. If they're making a mockery of the salary cap, we've got to go above and beyond, and I've got broad powers to do so. Players Association will definitely have a problem with that, you can imagine.
Yeah, for sure. You're right. It's almost like Silver. It's like executive orders that he can sign, and then there's always a debate, like, what are those really worth, if it doesn't go through Congress or whatever. And in this particular instance, if it doesn't go through the Players Association or what have you. But it is cool just to see Kawhi, just blending back into town, as tough as that is to do for a guy who's 6'9" and, is famous and, obviously put forth the performance he did. But it's kind of amazing how, like, when he left, obviously there wasn't animosity, but it was really disappointing. It was, we talked about Brady Tkachuk and his exit yesterday, and he's not going to the Ottawa Open anytime soon and walking around. That's not going to happen. And when Kawhi left, it wasn't anger, it was disappointment. And even though everyone was kind of waiting for it, and once it happened, no one was overly surprised, it was still very difficult to stomach because they had just won, and he was such a primary part of that. And now he's back and just kind of blending in, even with this uncertainty clouding everything and hanging over everything. I got to believe it's probably unanimous that people are just reacting positively to seeing him. It makes me, excited to get to camp. And I understand we still got to wait to see what happens here. Is he going to be suspended? Is the trade even going to go through, which I think it probably will. If he is suspended, we'll have that conversation on whether or not it's a benefit to them or not, because maybe he sits for 20, 25 games and then he saves his body and builds it back up for the rest of the way. And I think they're built well enough as a team to be able to survive that and then really get a jolt when he returns. But it's just got my mind racing on, like, what this is going to look like when he gets out there for the first time. And when he's back in front of the media before a game or shoot around or what have you, gets his name called out. That I think the place is just going to explode his first game at home as a Raptor again.
Oh, without a doubt. I mean, without a doubt, he's a hero. I mean, this guy, let's not, I know people love Kyle Lowry. Kyle Lowry's going to have his number retired this year, and he's a lot of people call him the greatest Raptor of all time. But in terms of the most important player in the history of the franchise, there's no contest that it is Kawhi Leonard, because nothing happens in terms of winning that championship without him. They could not do it without him, obviously. Mm-hmm. And guess what? We see Kyle Lowry in a very different light if they don't win that championship. Like, Kyle Lowry owes a huge debt to Kawhi Leonard, because by winning that championship, Kyle Lowry legitimized his career in a way that he couldn't have done any other way. Without winning the championship, there's always that cloud, and there's always that idea that, well, you couldn't get it done.
Yep.
And you went to Eastern Finals, but there was always LeBron. You got stopped by LeBron multiple times. And I think, without Kawhi, as much as Kyle clearly did not like the Kawhi trade 1.0, the trade that brought DeMar DeRozan over to San Antonio and Kawhi to Toronto, as much as Kyle didn't like that, and there were real problems. Masai Ujiri's hinted at the real problems that were present in the that season, Hayes. Like they were thinking about trading Kyle Lowry in that championship season, and very seriously thinking about trading Kyle Lowry in that championship series because he was having a hard time getting over the fact that his best pal DeMar got traded. But because of the four bouncer that gets him past Philly, because Kawhi's matchup with Giannis dug them out of that 2-0 hole against Milwaukee and brought them to a finals. Because of all those things that Kawhi brought, Kyle gets the number retired, and Kyle is the greatest Raptor of all time. And there's no way he is that without Kawhi.
No, you're right. I mean, it is a fascinating history, the story of Kyle Lowry. The acquisition where he had already jumped around a couple times in the NBA. And, he was known as a guy who was, uber talented, but was he out of shape? Was he going to be mature enough to run an offense and to kind of be a leader? And when Masai showed up, again, it's well documented. He was looking to flip him. New York could have had him. And Dolan, I think, stepped in and said, I'm not doing that deal. And you're right. The DeMar trade, that was personal. I think it's also kind of well known that there was an imbalance of, there's ego in play. And Kyle had been the man. Kyle had been there for a long time. Then all of a sudden Kawhi shows up and Kawhi's getting different treatment, and load management. And naturally, I don't think that probably went over that well with Kyle Lowry. But you're absolutely right. Kyle benefited as much as anyone in terms of his legacy because of what Kawhi represented. Remember at Oracle Arena when after they won and they're in the kind of doldrums of the stadium and they're taking pictures and they're doing interviews and Kyle and Kawhi are sitting there like brothers, man, like hugging it out and talking each other up and how much they love each other. And that's the beauty of winning. And that's what comes with winning. And even the playoff run, like Kyle was very good. He saved his best for last. The best game he played was Game 6.
Yes.
Like he was great in that game, the closeout game. And that's when Kawhi was starting to run out of steam a little bit and actually kind of needed some help to get them over the top in the final. And Kyle was phenomenal in Game 6 at Golden State. But you're right. I mean, Kawhi quite literally changed the whole landscape of the Raptors organization, the whole landscape of the Toronto sports scene. And the amazing thing is for a guy that doesn't show anything publicly, he's one of the most fascinating content machines in history. Like what happened in San Antonio, the fact like he took on LeBron James when LeBron was at his peak in Miami and won.
That's right.
And said, bring it. Like that was his introduction to the NBA world. Like, who's this guy? Like obviously he was he's a first round pick and all that, but he didn't go to Duke or North Carolina or anything like that. And then he turns his back on Greg Popovich and the Spurs and gets traded up here, and then he goes to the Clippers for Shai Gilgeous-Alexander. Like the tree of Kawhi and the impact he has had on modern NBA history, but what will eventually just be the history of the sport, is phenomenal for a guy that has never said anything that has stood out.
Yes.
Isn't on social media other than like promoting stuff. And I don't think it's him. It's not like when LeBron's in the gym, I think that's LeBron's phone. Like LeBron's setting up his phone, taking pictures of him doing squats or whatever, and then posting it with whatever song he likes that day. Like I think that's LeBron. Like he might filter it through a team, but Kawhi, I don't think that's happening. I don't think Kawhi, is doing that kind of stuff on his own. So just a fascinating figure and a fascinating impact on the sport. And now he's coming back, but we need to wait for the result of this to play out. So it was cool to see him last night. Again, the Raptors, they get back into camp September 29th, I think it is, which is a big day. That's when the Leafs open up. The Leafs play the Habs that night. And I wonder if Kawhi shows up at Scotiabank Arena. If he's doing the tour, Leafs Habs on I think it's a Tuesday night, give it a shot, right? If you're Kawhi, get in there.
He's always wanted a piece of the Leafs.
He did. He allegedly he asked for ownership of MLSE, right? That would make him a part-time or small-time owner of the Maple Leafs at the same time.
His
right.
uncle Dennis asked on his behalf.
Right. Okay. There you go.
Allegedly.
We should point that out.
I mean, the Toronto Star reported that. We have reported that.
Okay.
Yeah.
So it's not alleged. It's reported.
Yeah,
there you
it's
go.
reportedly. We've reported that fact.
Okay. Well, wouldn't that be a fascinating world if Kawhi had, an impact on bringing in John Chaika and, like the whole saga with, the offseason and everything. Wouldn't that be amazing to see Kawhi Leonard in the rink doing his thing?
I'll tell you what, he had the right idea, Hayes. When you see franchise values continuing to skyrocket, and today we saw another big number with the sale of the L.A. Lakers for, a $2 billion profit over a 14-month period, going from $10 to $12 billion in valuation over 14 months. I mean, it's just shocking when you think about how things have just gone exponential in the world of franchise values.
It really is. And listen, if there's going to be a team that would have a massive price tag, it would be the Lakers, understandably. The Celtics just sold recently for, I think, 9.5 or 10.
Mm-hmm. Yep.
But you're right. Like, what happened in the last 14 months that made up $2 billion? Like, what? Luka Doncic being there? Like LeBron's not there anymore. LeBron leaving made them $2 billion. I'm not really sure how like Forbes magazine is going to report on that and resolve that. I don't know if it's a great look. Like if you're Adam Silver, you got to be uncomfortable a little bit, like because this is a prized jewel of the league. Like LeBron's gone, and now you've got owner turnover, and it's a complicated ownership group where I think there's like private equity involved, and that's always somewhat of a sore spot when it comes to pro sports, because then it's turning more corporate, right? And the Lakers were always a family-run business. The Buss family, and it was just, we'll spend what we got to spend to win, and we're going to build up the family atmosphere. And I don't know if that's, conducive with the new owners in L.A., but you're right, man. That's why there's always pushback from players, and why you're going to hear it a lot from the Major League Baseball Players Association in the next 6 to 8 months. Is players are going to cry, woe is me. But every time a team goes up for sale, these owners are making billions and billions of dollars every single time. No team goes down in value. It hasn't happened yet. Not even close.
No. And you and I are old enough, Hayes, where we've lived through sales going back 10, 20 years. We're really smart people. CEOs and titans of industry were saying, oh, the sports world's got a peak here. Like these valuations are getting crazy. They were saying that 10, 15 years ago. I mean, when the pension plan sold out of MLSE, Hayes, that was only 14 years ago. MLSE was valued at about $2 billion. Now it's the most recent sale where Larry Tannenbaum was bought out. It was 12.
Yeah.
So 6x over 14 years, man. Like, what kind of an investment can you make where you 6x your money in that short a time span? If you didn't buy into NVIDIA or one of these AI stocks, I don't know what else you could have bought that would have gone up faster.
No, you're right. That's literally what it is. It's getting in on a major stock, and in the moment, it's the same. What we're saying now is what I'm sure people were saying 15 years ago. We were saying, "Wow, man, it can't be worth more than 12." Lakers are probably worth $13 billion in 5 years, maybe in 3 years.
Maybe next year.
Maybe next year. And that's the truth. And I would guess Larry Tannenbaum might be thinking, man, I got shortchanged here. Like because if you get the Raptors, the Leafs, the Argos, TFC, all the buildings, MLSC, I got to think is worth more than just the Lakers on their own. I understand the brand value of the Lakers and it's L.A. and all that. But, man, there's some heavy hitters in Maple Leaf Sports and Entertainment, and it just continues to go up and up and up. All right, so we got a big one today. Steve Phillips is going to join us here. The Jays with another win last night, another comeback win last night. We've seen that a couple of times recently, Dave. And that is to me, if you're going to gain optimism, and you and I talked about it on Monday, that they have to go 5-2 this week. I think 4-3 is a minimum, clearly. But I think you got to go 5-2, which means you got to take 3 of 4 against the Sox and 2 of 3 against the Yankees at a minimum, to wake up on Monday, an off day, and say, okay, we can breathe here, and we're actually in this race. They're probably going to be a game or two out if they do that between now and Sunday afternoon. But they needed to show that they were capable of getting offense late in games, getting back in games, because they just never did that early in the season. Like, they would get down, and you just knew it was over. And the lineup is wild. They're going back to it tonight. McAdoo leading off, Bateman hitting second. You know, it's you got a lefty on the mound, but Nathan Lucas not getting into the lineup. They're kind of sticking with like a part-time analytics vibe because McAdoo leading off does not scream analytically, strong necessarily when you look at his stats. But it's like they're trying to mold together kind of a good vibe. Hey, let's just run it back. We're going to go with the eye test type stuff. And I can't necessarily blame them because if you catch a heater, like there's other sports where it's pretty simple. In hockey, we see it all the time. Starting goaler gets a shutout, you're going back in the next game.
Yep.
Like, it doesn't matter if you're the backup. Like, you're playing. And I wonder if John Schneider and company, and more importantly, the analytics company or department is like, we got to go on some vibes here. We got to get some vibes going. And Okamoto back in the lineup tonight, but that was a big win. Big win last night.
Huge win, Hayes. And I think I don't mind going with vibes on something like this because this team has been run by the spreadsheet.
Yeah.
And that's what got them into this mess. I'm not saying, the spreadsheet's good or bad, but they've been run by the book, by the computer, by the algorithm, by the percentages. They're the defending Sloan MIT Sports Analytics Conference Team of the Year, right? These guys are the paragon of an analytical ball club. But it hasn't done much for them. And there is something to be said for just, hey, a little spirit into the lineup. Some guys coming up from Buffalo with something to prove that are swinging the bat well and are hungry and, coming in with enthusiasm and a new enthusiasm because there was a huge malaise around this team, right, Hayes? Like, this was
big
just
time.
Like it just felt like, oh, well, we lost another one, and it was just there was nothing anybody could do to shake it up. They tried the dragon on a stick, and that worked for a couple games, but it didn't last. And they tried a bunch of stuff, but maybe they didn't try firing the manager, so now they're trying something different, which is, hey, go with a vibe lineup of some new guys in town and see how it goes. And I'm all for it until it's not working.
Yeah, exactly. And McAdoo Bateman 1-2 is the perfect example of that. Like the idea, the old "if I had told you," your head would pop off if I said this in April. Like, hey, you're not going to believe who's hitting first and second in the lineup in games where they start to feel better about themselves in August. You'd think that was an impossibility. And I think just locking in Vladdy, regardless of the stat, they're not taking him out of the lineup. It's not going to happen. Stop shifting him around. Just stick him in the third hole, which is where he is, and work everything else around it. And Okamoto's coming back tonight. He's going to DH. So Springer now coming off the bench. Lucas off the bench. They have some bats for later in the arm once they run Suarez out of the game, who's a really good pitcher, having a really good season. But that's a big win. You got a chance to own the series tonight. You get a win against the Red Sox here. That's 3 straight. That means you guarantee yourself at least 3-1 in this series, and you can get greedy tomorrow afternoon before the Yankees get to town. It's big, and you got Jose Soriano making his home debut tonight. So you talk about vibes. I don't know what that's worth, but he was okay in his first outing. It wasn't great. And on that note, last night Cease did not have his best stuff. They owed him a performance last night. Like, they owed him some offense and a chance to drag them back in the game, and they did that for him because he's been so good. His last start, he was basically perfect, and they still lost. So he wasn't as good as we've seen this year, but they found a way to overcome that, and that is, again, speaking to the vibes of you got to do that for your guys every once in a while. They're going to bail you out. The offense has not been able to bail the arms out really at all this season. The shoe was on the other foot last night. So Steve Phillips coming up just after 5. Steve Stan's coming up. We got the FedEx starting up tomorrow down in Memphis, and this is a locked and loaded field, too. 70 guys, all the best players in the world are down there. Catch up with Sansi on that and more. Live Golf. They're not even going to play the final event, I guess. They basically told the players not happening. We'll figure it out down the road. So get into that and more with Sansi as well. Best bets still to come. Dave's in here. I'm Brian Hayes. OverDrive continues, TSN 1050 and on TSN 4.
Back to OverDrive with Hayes, Noodles, and the O-Dog.
All right, OverDrive continues, powered by FanDuel, bringing you more ways to play your game your way. Got Steve Sands coming up from NBC and the Golf Channel here in a moment. The FedEx Cup playoffs officially beginning with the FedEx St. Jude down in Memphis. And for some reason, Dave, this is always the tournament that I find people claim to be the hottest tournament of the year. And I mean temperature-wise. Mm-hmm. Like there's something about Memphis in August that is just absurd. Like it's constantly 40 degrees plus, like every single day. And it's almost like it's a built-in thing, like it's part of the build-up and the conversation. And I guess I'm anticipating that being the case again this week. But, man, there's some obviously great players in this tournament. And what I find interesting is the tee times. I'm looking at who Koivin's playing with. I can't see it yet, but he's going off early. And for me, there's something about this Jackson Koivin kid who you got to be a real golf freak like you and I are, Dave, to know of his collegiate history. But he was a superstar in college, and he was a great U.S. amateur, and he has been a rock star early and often on tour. And he made it into the FedEx Cup playoffs on the number 70. So he's got to do some damage this week to stay in it next week and weeks beyond. But to chat about it, we're joined now by our good friend, Steve Sands from NBC and the Golf Channel. What's happening, Sandsy?
Man, you guys want to talk about heat and humidity. Memphis, Tennessee in August, baby. Come on now.
I know. It's like everyone says that. Like it's like a part of the overarching conversation of the whole tournament. Why is it hotter there than anywhere else on tour every single year?
I don't know, man. It is. I mean, I looked at the forecast. I mean, it is going to be smoking all week long.
All right. We're good with that. Jackson Koivin.
Yeah, you're good with that.
I'm fine with that up here.
Toronto,
no, exactly. We got AC in the studio. I'm all good. I mean, it's nice. It's warm up here, but it's not crazy. It's actually
now to be fair, it's 68 and sunny in the booth every single week for us too. So
yeah,
we'll
exactly. You guys will be fine.
Getting to the booth and going to the range might be a little bit on the warm side, but no big deal.
They'll take care of you. Someone will fan you down if need be. You're a big shooter,
It's all good.
It's all good.
Oh yeah.
Jackson Koivin, put this kid into perspective for us. Like, is generational talent, is that too much? If it's not, what does that mean for projecting his career? And how big of a story is he this year or this week? Now that all the big boys have arrived and everyone's playing for keeps.
Generational talent, we'll have to wait and see. Let's see how it all unfolds as a professional. As an amateur, as a collegiate player at Auburn, I mean, my goodness, the kid had a resume that from the heavens. And then he came out 3 weeks ago in his third ever start on tour as a pro and wins the 3M Open and sneaks into that last spot in the 70th spot. Only 70 players make it to the FedEx Cup playoffs. And you talked about the early tee time. They do it in order in the FedEx Cup playoffs. So Scotty's number 1, he'll go out last. Jackson's 70th, he'll go out first. And that's how they do all the tee times, and they put all those guys together, 70 and 69, that kind of thing. And it'll be fun to watch him play and how he handles himself. But that win was so big 3 weeks ago. And for him to sneak into the playoffs, it doesn't even matter what he does the next 3 weeks, just to get the experience at 21 years of age against these guys, it's going to be really, really fun to watch.
So, Steve, I'm not quite clear on this. Like, it's a 70-man field, and then Daniel Berger withdraws, so it's 69. And now it looks as though Koivin, because it's an odd number of guys and they're going out in twosomes, Koivin's going to have to go out alone. Like, why don't they bring in number 71, or is that verboten?
No, it's a hard number of 70. And the way they do it in the FedEx Cup playoffs is that you have to earn your way all the way throughout the entire season to get to this point. To get into this event, you have to be 1 through 70. If somebody withdraws like Daniel Berger, unfortunately, by the way, a winner on this golf course, a past champion of this event. So that's too bad. But because he's out, it becomes an odd number of just 69 players. They will not add a player to the playoffs.
Okay, so Koivin going out on his own. And you mentioned Scheffler. And, we're getting close to PGA Tour Player of the Year award coming out. And, I believe he's only won once this year on tour, which for a lot of guys, anyone would take. But he's top fives basically every week. If he's not top fiving, he's top tenning. I think it was Brando was tweeting this out a week or two ago. He leads the tour in everything, like every stat across the board, except for, wins, where there's, guys who have had magical seasons this year and have won more than him. Is it a formality that he's the PGA Tour Player of the Year for you, Sandsy, or is there someone else that is in legitimate contention with Scheffler?
Oh, no, there's a legitimate debate this year. It's the first time in a long time I can remember that the PGA Tour Player of the Year was legitimately up for grabs heading into the FedEx Cup playoffs. I think it's awesome. By the way, Scotty's only win on tour this year came in his first start at the American Express all the way back in January, so that's bizarre.
Wow.
But like you said, look, he's finished, in the top 5, top 2, 5 other times. I think he's right there, and if he makes a run in these FedEx Cup playoffs, I think he's got a chance to be PGA Tour Player of the Year. But you got to have Cameron Young in there. He won the Players and another time on tour. You've got to have Matt Fitzpatrick in there. He's won 3 times on the PGA Tour. You've got to have Rory McIlroy, who won the Masters, and if he wins the FedEx Cup, I think that he's got a great shot. By the way, if he wins the FedEx Cup, he'd be the 4th time in his career. He's the only player who's ever won 3 FedEx Cup titles. So, to me, PGA Tour Player of the Year is up for grabs, and it's up for grabs for the first time in a long time.
So, Steve, obviously Rory returning to the PGA Tour is big news because he hasn't played much. He hasn't played since the Open Championship almost a month ago. He's only played 6 times since the Masters, including 3 of those being majors. What do you make of the fact that he's been so scarce around the tour? And what do you think that says about the way he views the tour and the way his future may look?
I don't know if it says anything about the way he views the tour, other than the fact that I think that everybody knows what happened a few years ago when, the PGA Tour basically threw him under the bus when he was the face of the tour and didn't tell them about a deal that was being made, and he wasn't, brought in on that discussion when he was brought in on all the other stuff. So I think that, there was a little bit of angst there. But, look, he won the Masters last year to win the career Grand Slam. He won it again, becoming just the 4th player in the history of the sport to go back-to-back at Augusta. And I think that he's a global player. He's a guy who's always traveled around the world. He's played in Australia. He's played in India. He's played in Europe. He's played in the United States. He's played everywhere, really. And I think that that's pretty much it. He's played 6 times in the U.S. or on the PGA Tour since the Masters, but he's played a couple of other international events. But I don't think it speaks anything to how he feels about the tour. I think it's just a guy who's playing with house money, and he's kind of enjoying his life and enjoying himself, and probably is playing great golf because he's got such balance in his life. It's not just golf all day, all the time for him, but it'll be great to see him come back. I know he's itching to get back, and I'm looking forward to seeing him tomorrow morning.
With Steve Sands of NBC and the Golf Channel. And generally, I think in the past, he hasn't even shown up for this first playoff event because he knew he was going to qualify for the second one and get to the Tour Championship. But, I do wonder if what's happening with Liv also allows him to kind of breathe a little bit easier. You mentioned there was some contention there between him and the Tour and, when they were trying to broker a deal. But he was... he kind of called the shot that it wasn't really going to work long term, and it doesn't feel like it's going to work. And when he won the Masters the first time and then came back and won it again, I think what he proved to himself was I don't need to play, and I can still win major championships, right? Like he didn't play a lot famously building up to the Masters, and it didn't affect him whatsoever. So this is a guy that I think is as confident as he's ever been, and that's probably scary because he doesn't feel like he has to speak for anybody and he doesn't have to play a ton. And that's just pure talent and determination when he shows up and puts the peg in the ground.
I totally agree. By the way, the angst with the tour was when we were in Toronto.
Right, of course.
That. It was
always.
Wednesday's Pro-Am. I think it was June 6th, maybe.
Yep.
Was the day. And, look, you get a professional athlete who has done everything you can possibly imagine in the sport, and he has a head on his shoulders, and he has an understanding of how things work on and off the golf course for him, for his family, and, his life, his game. I think that when you have someone like Rory playing with house money, freewheeling it, if you will, I think that's a very dangerous spot for the other players on the PGA Tour. And yes, we were surprised, happily, that he was going to play this week, because he was definitely going to be playing next week in St. Louis at Bellerive at the BMW Championship, and then try to go win the Tour Championship and the FedEx Cup for a fourth time. So happy that he's here this week. Probably not working on his game versus trying to win per se, but he's definitely going to try to work his way back into playing golf at this level, in this arena, if you will. And I fully expect Rory to be a factor come the weekend in Atlanta in 3 weekends after Memphis and St. Louis at the Tour Championship, and try to win the FedEx Cup again. There's no reason at all that he would not be playing outstanding golf.
Steve, it seems like, as much as Live Golf looks like it's on its last legs, there's still so much chatter in terms of the corridors of power of pro golf, and how this sport may be reshaped in the coming couple of years with the new commissioner, Brian Rolap, on the PGA Tour, proposing this so-called two-track system. It's hard to get your head around this, because we haven't been able to envision the exact way it's going to look. When you're around the tour as much as you are, what's the conversation like about the two-track system, and how it might look, and how it might affect, if you can work in how it might affect Canada and the Canadian Open specifically, because there's a little bit of confusion about that for a lot of golf fans.
Yeah, I'm a little scared about what's going to happen with the Canadian Open. You guys both know, especially Brian, you know how much I love coming up there and love being with you guys and love that event and love the fans up there and the people. It could get lost in the shuffle. It just depends on what RBC wants to do. It depends on what the PGA Tour wants to do. If RBC decides not to be the sponsor of the Canadian Tour, the Canadian Open, will they put all their chips into Hilton Head? And maybe that's a better venue for them business-wise. I have no idea. But one thing I do know is Canadian players will tell you that if there's two tracks, which there's going to be, a championship series of about 16 events, and then a challenge series going on at the same time, if you're part of the championship series, so your top 100 players or 120 players, whatever the number eventually is going to be, I think it's going to be around 100 or 120 is what I think it's going to be. And if you're in that top 120 and you can't play in a challenge series event, and let's just say the Canadian Open is a challenge series event, that's a problem. If the Dallas event is not part of the championship series, I'm just using this as an example,
Yep.
and Jordan Spieth and Scottie Scheffler, both legendary Dallas players, can't play in their hometown event because they're not allowed to dip down to the challenge series when they're part of the championship series, man, that's a problem. I think the players on this tour, for long as they've been around, have never been told when and when not they can play. And that's a problem to me. So I don't know what's going to happen with the Canadian Open. I sure hope that it's part of the championship series, because I think it deserves to be. And I think the people of Canada, and I'm not just saying this because I'm friends with you guys, and I'm not just saying this because I love coming up there, and I'm just saying it should be part of it. It's a very, very popular event on the PGA Tour. Just needs the right date and the right love and massaging, if you will. And I think it'll be a fantastic event. But as far as both things going on at the same time, that's the track that the players want to go on. I'm not quite convinced that it's the best path forward, especially when Liv is going away. Basically, you don't really have to do this because you're not really competing with Liv anymore. Even if it exists for another couple of years, you're not really competing against Liv. So to blow up the structure of the tour and change every single aspect of it, for the most part, I think is very tricky. It'll be really interesting to see how it all plays out. But the players are starting to gather some more and more information, and as they get more and more intel, they kind of realize what's exactly taking place. I'm not sure all of them are going to love what's going to go down here in the next few months.
Yeah, it's a gamble that they're taking, and it's complicated where you look at the history of, let's say, the Canadian Open. That's an open championship. If you're a track one kind of standard stop on the PGA Tour and there's 120 guys, Yes, you got Scheffler coming up, presumably, and McIlroy and all that, but you're not getting the other, Canadian. You're not getting Bud Cauley, who just won it. You're not getting Ryan
Correct.
Fox probably 2 years ago, who won it when Fox was not at that point maybe established as, a top 100 guy. He might have been close. But, the long-standing history of tournaments have the ability to change. But there's a lot going on. And, you talk about LIV and where it currently stands and the best players who still reside on that tour. Bryson came out recently and said there isn't a golf fan on earth that doesn't want to watch me play. I think Jon Rahm still has the ability to move the needle. I just don't know where it stands today compared to where it was a year ago, 2 years ago, 3 years ago, and what the appetite is going to be for the fans to get them back. Like, considering we just went through the Brooks Koepka experience, which I was excited for, and I thought it was cool to see him on tour. He didn't play that well. And when you don't play that well and you're not that competitive, you're just not going to be a big talking point. Like, if you just blend into the tour, it doesn't really matter what your history is unless you're going to be competitive. I guess what I'm getting to, Sanzi, is, like Bryson and Rahm, let's say the two of them return to the tour. Does it fall along the same line as Koepka's return? And if so, like, how quickly did they have to be competitive again before they just kind of blend in the way Koepka did this year?
Brooks didn't even qualify for the playoffs.
Crazy.
Played the entire season here.
Yeah.
I remember going all the way back to Torrey Pines, his first start on the PGA Tour, and the anticipation and the nerves and just being able to talk to him and being able to root for him if you're a fan, or being able to watch him play golf, and he didn't even make the playoffs. So that's a tough spot for Brooks, to have to get back into things. Just imagine if this was 2028 next year, not 2027. Brooks Koepka could potentially be on the Challenge Series and
Right.
not the Championship Series, potentially.
Right.
And that's just a wild scenario. Imagine those big 16 events not having a sponsor exemption, not being allowed to have a guy like Brooks Koepka in their field because they are only 1 through 120 or whatever the number is. I think that Bryson is an incredibly popular figure. I don't think Friday at the Open Championship helped his cause with fans.
No.
If you remember that whole craziness.
Yes.
But, look, Jon Rahm's in a different category. I think Bryson's a lot more popular with fans than Jon Rahm. Jon Rahm's a tremendous player. But are Jon Rahm and Bryson DeChambeau going to move the needle if they come back any more than the needle's been moved? I mean, the ratings are already up. Nobody really watches LIV. Nobody really cares about LIV. And when you have a player like, say, Brooks Koepka come back and he doesn't perform at the highest level, well, all of a sudden you don't see him on TV and you don't see him in the best tee times. And you're like, oh, okay, whatever. Oh, Brooks was there. He finished tied for 47th. No big deal. Now, do I think Bryson and John would be better coming back? I don't know. I mean, who knows? Brooks Koepka's a hell of a player. He just didn't play that great this year. And I think Bryson is incredibly popular and will be welcomed back to the PGA Tour because of his popularity with fans and social media and all that stuff. And Jon Rahm will be welcomed back because he's such a great, great player. But they're going to have to pay a massive penalty. They will pay a larger penalty if they came back, whether it's this year, next year, 3 years, whatever it is, be a larger penalty than Brooks paid. Brooks paid $5 million and wasn't in the signature events and couldn't play his way into them. Ended up not being in the playoffs, couldn't make his way into the biggest events all year. And if you're going to have a two-tier tour and you're going to have these guys come back and not be on the first track, but in the second track, it's going to be a difficult road for those guys. But for sure, the PGA Tour would want those two players back. Now, they'll punish them severely, but they would love to have both of those players back for popularity and for greatness reasons.
Yep, they're needle movers, as they say in the industry. I don't dispute any of that. Stay cool down there, Sanzi. Great catching up with you, buddy. We'll do it again soon. Thank you for this.
All right, fellas, be good. Anytime, man.
There he is, Steve Sands of NBC and the Golf Channel. Yeah, that'd be a wild scene, man, if Brooks Koepka was on track 2 in a year from now because he played himself into it. Because they made an exception bringing him back. They're not. I don't think they can do that twice. You can't say, hey, you're kind of the 145th best player right now, but we're still going to put you in the top 120. I'm not sure the tour. I don't think the players will accept that. He's got to earn it, and he hasn't so far.
The thing that bothers me about this whole idea, Hayes, is that it's taking these sort of paragons of pro golf, like these established traditions of pro golf, like the sponsors exemption for a hometown guy or a guy on the recovery trail, like the idea that guys from their hometown or home country in terms of the Canadian Open want to play in their home event. It's taking those things and saying, no, we don't want that anymore. We want something different. We want something premium. We want this two-track system where there's relegation and promotion, and there's a have and have-nots, and the have-nots are trying to get up to the haves. And I get the idea of that, but I think it's really playing with a pretty damn good system that's been in place for an awfully long time and built it to what it is, and I think it's dangerous.
Yeah, and like great stories. Michael Brennan's an example of that. He's not playing on track one the last 3 weeks.
Right.
Like look what this guy's done. Chasing down championships, and then he finally got one last week. He wouldn't even be able to do that. And just the establishment of track two, like Rory said recently, it's the Corn Ferry. They can call it the PGA Tour all you want. If the best players are up here and then everyone else is somewhere else, it's the Corn Ferry, it's the Hooters Tour. You can call it whatever you want.
Yes.
It's not the PGA Tour. It's not. And, the diehards will watch it, but it's not going to get the same promotion. All right, hour two coming up. Steve Sands will join us. Best Bets as well. OverDrive continues up on YouTube Live.
Back to Overdrive with Hayes, Noodles, and the O-Dog.
I told you long ago on the road, I got what they waiting for.
All right, Steve Phillips coming up. Jose Soriano making his home debut for the Jays tonight. Jays looking to win the series this evening after the first two wins against the Red Sox. And Kaz Okamoto back in the lineup. He will DH tonight. Springer not in the starting lineup, available off the bench. I guess he's been dealing with a shoulder issue. They're going to let that settle a little bit. But I would think we might see George at some point later in the game. Nathan Lucas, the same thing. But Jays are red hot. They're red hot right now, and we'll see what Steve Phillips can say on that. More coming up in the next hour. Dave, you got something? You're going to look into a crystal ball for us, I believe, in the next hour. I love that. I got a couple of other things set up. Best bets still to come. Hour 2 coming up. Overdrive continues. TSN 1050 and up on TSN 4.
presents Canada's hottest take on reality dating.
This is not like any dating show I've ever seen.
Temptations Under the Sun Cyprus, only on Crave.
Every assist, every stop, every did you see that moment? All of it right here. Lock in all season long.
This is OverDrive with Hayes, Noodles, and the O-Dog on TSN 1050.
Hour 2 OverDrive continues, powered by FanDuel. Brian Hayes, Dave Festruck of the Toronto Star, Jay Sox tonight. Maybe Kawhi Leonard in attendance, right? We saw him at the National Bank Open last night. I don't know. Maybe Kawhi decides to show up at the Jays game tonight. But Soriano on the mound making his home debut, and they're going with a very similar lineup. You got McAdoo leading off, Bateman hitting second. Bateman had his most impactful game as a Blue Jay last night, right? And that's a prominent position. It's obviously Varsho has held it for the last couple of years, and I don't know if he's an everyday center fielder. I don't know if he's an everyday center fielder on a World Series contending team, but they're going to give him some play here, right? And last night, pretty good start. And Schneider said he's a no nonsense guy. You kind of know what you get out of him. And right now they're throwing a lot at the wall, but it's leading to some wins. And I think Blue Jay fans will take it.
Well, Hayes, you say, is this guy an everyday center fielder on a World Series team? You could look back to last year on a team that ended up going to the seventh game of the World Series in extra innings and nearly won the thing. There were a lot of guys on that team that we had those questions about, right? Like, it was like these guys came out of nowhere. The Nathan Lucases of the world. Speaking of Nathan Lucas, because he's been on fire lately, defensively especially. There've been the Ernie Clements of the world and the Addison Bargers of the world. Like, that's what the Blue Jays are good at, right? Theoretically, if they're going to be good, they're going to be good at this, which is bringing a guy up that maybe is not the most highly touted guy in the world, and then he turns into something that you didn't expect him to turn into.
They do have a good track record of that. Like, they have found guys via trade, the Shapiro and Atkins, duo. They've done a very good job of that and allocating money to starting pitchers that give them a lot of innings. And that's kind of what we're going to see tonight. They're obviously banking on that out of Soriano, that he's durable. He's a guy that they obviously believe in his talent and his ability to get outs, but the best ability and most important ability is availability, and we know that when it comes to starting pitchers, and that is two areas that I think this front office deserves credit on, is the ability to find guys in trades that you didn't really think were going to pop, like that didn't just get a ton of attention when they were acquired, and acquiring starting pitchers that are going to work for them. Dylan Cease, obviously the most recent example of that. Kevin Gausman was very good for them. Chris Bassett gave them everything you would expect out of 3 years from Chris Bassett, right? And they're obviously planning on the same thing with Soriano. So, yeah, I think the front office from that standpoint has shown enough and has enough sample size to have belief in that. But it's all about momentum right now, and the Jays have got it. How long it lasts is really up to them, but they've won the first two games of this series. Game 3 going tonight. To chat about it, we're joined now by our TSN Baseball Insider. Here's Steve Phillips joining us on the Maple Toyota Hotline. What's happening, Steve?
Hey, guys. Good to be with you. How are you?
We're doing very well, and tonight we're talking about Charles McAdoo leading off. You got Bateman hitting second. This is a mojo play. Like, Bateman had a couple of big hits last night. He's going to play every day in center field. That's fine. But I can't say the analytics scream this should be the way they do it. But I kind of like it, because if you're going to rack up some wins for the first time basically all season, why mess with a good thing? I kind of feel like the good vibes mojo is factoring into the lineup card every night. Do you see it the same way?
Yeah, I think for John Schneider, he's got to play to win and play the hot hand, ride the hot hand. When you're not hitting, you're ranked 29th in runs scored in Major League Baseball, and you've got some guys that are doing something to get the line moving a little bit. Play them, ride it out, see what you can do with it. And the reality is that with 41 games left, you got 25% of the season left right now. it's going to come down to really, it's not going to be Bateman or McAdoo. It's going to be Vladdy. And if Vladdy can hit the ball in the ballpark and get going, I mean, to think about, they have one 20-homer player that they have only two players with double-digit home runs right now. It's pretty remarkable. But, you know, they've got some momentum. I'm worried about the starting pitching with Tyone and going down and Eric Getty not being ready to come back just yet. And so they're shorthanded. And the bullpen, they've made 31 more pitching changes than the second most team in baseball. They've made the most pitching changes. They've got there are 16 relievers who have appeared in 55 games or more. Four of them are Blue Jays. The only other team with two are the Yankees. And the other ones are just one guy on every team. And so, you know, there's a lot of things screaming it's impossible, but a short sprint to the finish, they've got the wherewithal to do it and the time to do it.
Well, Steve, if you believe in the percentages, in the past week or so, they've essentially doubled their chances of getting into the playoffs. I think 7 or 6 days ago they were 6%. Right now they're about 12% according to Fangraphs. So that's still an 88% chance that they're not going to make it. But people in town are excited, at least for now. But you go back to the numbers on Vladdy. I mean, he's had some warning track blasts of late. When you look at that, when you see a guy with warning track blasts who's been, complaining at times of a back problem, at times of a hamstring problem, I mean, like, are you seeing that he just doesn't have that pop? I mean, to your eye, what is wrong there? And is there any chance that it could turn around given the things he's been complaining about?
Yeah, I mean, certainly back and leg issues can affect the power for a hitter. There's no question about that. It's, the legs, the feet all the way up are the foundation of the swing. The kinetic links that connect all of those to allow the hips to rotate to get the bat in the zone are all part of that. But his exit velocities are still pretty good, down a little bit, but still pretty good. And so it really is the angle at which he hits the baseball is the thing. And so when he's not comfortable, he cheats a little bit and he gets halfway. And when he gets his body out, it's really hard for him to then get on that back leg and lift and hit the bottom of the baseball. And so what he does is he gets out here and the only angle that he can go to the ball is level or down on it to be able to make contact. And that's what we're seeing in the results right now. And so, it can change, a little trigger where somebody says to him, hit the ball out in front. Go ahead. Don't worry about if you strike out. Don't worry about anything else. Hit the ball out in front. Make contact out in front a little bit more. Don't worry if you get jammed. Maybe there's a way he can catch fire. I think if he got going, then the back would feel better, right? The back hurts when you're not hitting well. Your hamstring's a little tighter when you're not performing well. I think if he started to perform and people started cheering, I think it would heal a lot of things for him.
Well, in terms of the other team, playing tonight, the Red Sox, I've noticed, Red Sox fans all of a sudden saying, I knew it. They peaked too soon. They're coming back to earth because they were so hot and they won all those games in a row. And now they do look all of a sudden like somewhat of a flawed team. How good or how bad are the Red Sox? Like, what exactly are the Red Sox as you project the rest of the way?
Right. So will the real Red Sox please stand up, right? I mean, it's so hard to know like who they really are. In the 4 games that they've lost, they're 2 for 36 with runners in scoring position. But I'm not so worried about the 2. I'm impressed by the 36. So they're still getting runners on and in scoring position. They just haven't come up with the big hit. And so if I'm them, that's the message I'm sending. Guys, this is just the nature of baseball. Timing plays into a little bit. We're still giving ourselves chances and opportunities. We'll get going with that big hit again. Don't fret. Don't think about it. Don't try too hard. Just keep playing the way you're playing right now. That being said, I don't know how the hell they're doing it. They're okay. They're a good team, but they're not a great team. I like the pitching, but the offense, I don't get where the offensive production has come from. I mean, Cedeno Rafael is not a power guy. Wilyer Abreu is a really good player, but he's not a 30-homer guy. They've just gotten good contributions. They've hit with runners in scoring position, and they give themselves a lot of opportunities, and they haven't been beating themselves. Now, they did a little bit over the last few days, so we'll see what happens with it. But if they completely faded out of the playoffs, I wouldn't be shocked by it. because, it's like that college basketball team that makes a great run coming out after halftime, and then they expend all their energy and they can't sustain it the rest of the way. I could see that happening to them. The Tigers are the team right now for me. I think people should look out for. They've got the highest run differential in the American League. So
Crazy.
they've outperformed their record pretty significantly. The offense is starting to come around a little bit. And although they traded Scuba Mize, Ty Melton, Jackson Jobe, they both look great. They've got Framber Valdez on the mound today. I think there's a chance the Tigers are going to sneak into this thing and have reaped the benefits of trading away at the deadline.
Oh, we got Dave.
On the mound
There you go,
tonight.
Dave. Go ahead.
Sorry about that, guys. On the mound tonight, Steve, for the Jays, Soriano making his home debut. There's been a lot of talk. The Jays are getting a lot of pats on the back for acquiring a guy with a couple more years of club control after this one. And there's also this theory that, hey, he's good right now, but they can make him better. They can refine some things here with the way they develop pitchers, and he's still a relatively young guy at age 27. Are you a believer in that? Do you think the Jays actually have that potential to make this guy even better than he's been?
I do. So let me tell you why. One, I have the highest respect for Pete Walker. He was in the Mets organization as a player back in the day. I know him well. He's from the Northeast, so I know Pete really well. He's an excellent pitching coach. The other thing is, I don't know if you saw yesterday, but the LA Angels fired their pitching coach and their bullpen coach, who's the assistant pitching coach, Mike Maddox. They did not use any analytics in Los Angeles whatsoever. None. They didn't use anything about the shape of pitches, the break in vertical movement, the spin rate, nothing. And so, I think that you've got a piece of clay that with the right analytical approach and the right mechanical approach, the secondary stuff for Soriano can get even better. And so I am really excited about what he could grow into, maybe not so much for the rest of this year, but for 2027 for sure.
Yeah, he's going to have to. He's going to pop. He's going to have to when you consider what they have atop the rotation. You got Dylan Cease, Trey Savage is obviously. I don't think he's going to start again this year, but they have high hopes for him. And then you got Soriano. Then beyond that, they're going to have to fill that rotation out. But the injury and the surgery now to Savage. We talked about it last week when I think we were anticipating something was coming. I think you called the shot. You said it kind of looked and felt like a meniscus issue. Now that we know that he has had surgery on that, how do you thread this needle in terms of wins and losses, his recovery, and what's right for him long term compared to what might be right for the team short term?
Yeah, the way I always looked at it was I let the doctors make that decision. So I would never rush it. I would never put pressure on the doctor to just tell me when he's ready, and when he's ready, we'll see if there's time left in the season for him to pitch. And if there is, I'd pitch him. I wouldn't, if he get clearance on it and he's not going to injure himself in any way and it's not premature, then I would put him back out there and do it and see what would happen the rest of the year if he gets back at some point. But I think they have to be careful and not overdo it. And that's kind of the issue right now. With Tyone down, you Savage down, you've got a 4-man rotation. You're going to have a bullpen day on the most overworked bullpen in all of baseball. And so that's where it seems daunting to me that to try to make a run the rest of the year. But I think that if guys are healthy and can play, then I run them out there and play them.
With Steve Phillips,
Steve,
go ahead.
Sorry,
Dave.
go ahead.
Go.
Sorry. Big story, league-wide or MLB-wide, Steve, is the fall-off in Paul Skeens. I mean, this is a guy that was just wowing people as he sort of made his introduction into pro baseball, and here he is. I mean, a young guy, the velocity's way down. He gets pulled after 6 innings last night. What do you make of this? Is this a massive red flag to you, or is this a blip on the radar?
Well, it's a red flag that the velocity's down. And I know that they haven't made the playoffs in a while. I know they're desperate to try to do it, but he is your franchise. And when a pitcher's velocity drops as significantly as it has, I think you have to back him off and shut him down. I don't care who he is or where you are in the standings. I think you have to protect him. And so I'll be surprised if he makes another start. Even if he says he's okay, Something's not okay. And whether it's mechanical, whether it's physical, whether it's fatigue, whether it's the wear and tear of a full season and logging innings and being cut loose, whatever it is, I think they need to figure that out. And do the right thing for the franchise, both for the short term and long term, and for him. So I am concerned about it. The fact that he's not saying there's pain or anything else, although he's a tough guy, and guys don't always speak up about injuries, and this will be a learning curve for the organization. Sometimes you learn as you go. Players aren't always truthful about how they feel. They want to be tough. They want to pitch through it, and then they end up with a more significant issue. And so they're going to have to understand he may be one of those guys who is unwilling to take himself out, and you might have to be really conservative and protect him against himself.
Well, when Skeens arrived, obviously he took the league by storm, and everyone knew he was coming, and he was famous before he even arrived. He's got a famous girlfriend. But Jacob Misiorowski in Milwaukee, what he is doing right now is insane. Like, we talk about the American League and the pursuit of the Cy Young, and that's a battle. There is no battle in the National League. Like, he is a massive favorite. He's like minus 5,000 or something to win the Cy Young on FanDuel. And watching him pitch, as amazing as Skeens is, and all these guys, these great pitchers in their primes, to see him hit 104, 105 with ease, Steve, to me is just absurd. Like, I remember when Aroldis Chapman showed up and he would hit 101, 102, and it was like, what the hell is this guy? He'd come in, he'd throw 12 pitches and leave. This guy's throwing 90, 100, 110. How does this continue for the next 10, 15 years? I guess is what I'm getting to.
Yeah,
how does he pitch like this for the rest of his career? Go ahead.
Yeah, I think that's a concern for sure. We've never seen anything like it. Nobody has tried to max out on every pitch that he throws and has been able to sustain it for any long-term, period of time. He's throwing 53 pitches in a game over 100 miles per hour. It's just ridiculous. He's a freak of nature. We've never seen anything like it. And the reality is the perceived velocity for the hitter is even higher than the radar gun reading because he's got such long extension with his stride to home plate. If the ball gets on you that much, he's releasing it at like 7 feet 4 inches, where the average is like 6'9" or something like that. And so like the ball's just exploding on hitters. And I think that somewhere along the way, I hope that they do a really good job with the pitching stuff there in Milwaukee. Their pitching lab is fantastic, but he can get guys out at 97, 98 and save the 103 for the big moment rather than airing it out the big, and talking about having longer, stamina during the course of a season and endurance, longer for your career. And so I think I think he's going to have to reconcile that and get there, because if he doesn't, then we're going to have a year where he's not going to pitch because he's going to have to get something repaired with his elbow or shoulder. And I don't think any of us want that, including mostly him.
Yeah, no kidding. And like, it's kind of fascinating that we're basically in kind of a stage of baseball where you got to ask guys to like actually pitch instead of throw. Like, that's kind of what we're indicating here, right? Like, your stuff is so nasty and you can get there where you just challenge a guy. But, Maddox, and he's obviously an extreme because he's an all-time great, he was throwing in the mid to high 80s, but he was just confusing people. And I just don't know if, like, the young flame-throwing arms, how often that comes up and how you can change what they do in the mechanics, because that's kind of what got them to the major leagues.
Yeah, so when a player, pitchers can get away with mistakes the harder they throw. So they can throw one down the heart of the plate, and if you're throwing 98, 99, 100, you can make a mistake and get away with it just because it's hard to time that. But hitters have got to the point where they can time and have caught up to the high velocity. When I was a general manager, believe it or not, the average fastball for a right-hander was 90 to 92, and for a left-handed pitcher was 88 to 90. Those were the average. Average fastball is 95, 96 right now. And they're, it just feels like everybody's throwing 100 coming out of the bullpen. It's nearly impossible to time 105. Like, in order to click that, you've got to get started early and you've got to swing where you think the ball's going to be instead of actually swinging at it, which is why it's going to be so hard to hit home runs against him too. But he'll only be great for the Brewers if he ends up pitching in the postseason and having that same level of success. And the more he throws 103, 104, the less chance he's going to have 103, 104 when the games mean the most.
Great stuff, Steve. As always, appreciate you doing this. Enjoy the games tonight. We'll do it again soon.
Okay, guys, you bet. Thanks for having me.
There he is, Steve Phillips, our TSN Baseball Insider, joining us here on the Maple Toyota Hotline. It's time to Toyota. Check out the Toyota Tacoma and Toyota Tundra pickup trucks, both available as hybrids. Maple Toyota near Canada's Wonderland on the Maple Auto Mall. It is amazing how almost every big relief arm hits 100 with ease or close to it.
Yeah.
And even just the kind of chess game of the playoffs now is like power arm, power arm, power arm. It never slows down. So, like, you get into the 6th, 7th, 8th, 9th inning in the playoffs for a lot of bullpens, it's just consistently crazy stuff being thrown at you. But the ability for batters to turn on it now, too, Dave, like it's, like he says, 105 is different. Every mile per hour counts, and 105 is like crazy. But I think it was Varland I think it was game one of the series. Varland came in, and he'll hit 100 when he comes in, 99 to 100.
Oh, yeah.
And guys like Nick Sogard are like turning on it with like heat on the swing. And that's a guy, not a power hitter, not a guy who scares anybody. And that's a guy who can come in and he can time it up even at 100. It's kind of wild how not only the arms are doing something that obviously they weren't 20 or 30 years ago, but basically every hitter in baseball has to have the capability of turning on those pitches, and a lot of them still can.
Yeah, they can, but the pitchers have the upper hand, right, Hayes? Like we just saw that All-Star game, 27 strikeouts in an All-Star game where there was just no offense at all. And so it's harder and harder. But you read the stuff about how the hitters are battling back. They got these simulators with digital recreations of every pitcher's motion.
Yep.
So you can essentially groove learn an opponent's motion and where the release point is and how you can time it, because how else do you battle these guys if you don't even know what's coming?
It's a great point about technology, and I've seen a guy online do this, and I don't know his credentials. He's obviously an athlete. He's probably a college player or something like that, and he's got a cool, it's either Instagram or TikTok, probably both, where he's got something set up in the cage where he can program it to throw anything at him. 105 mile an hour, cutter that's got movement on it.
Yeah.
And you can do it, right? A 100 mile an hour knuckleball, you can do it. You can set it up. And he just goes for like hours. He's like, I'm going to sit here and attack this until I hit a home run. It might take 200 pitches, 250 pitches. And obviously, if he's got access to that, then clearly the major leagues do as well. But
maybe to Steve's point, maybe everybody but the Angels.
Yeah, exactly.
Don't seem to spend any money on anything.
No, but they just fired a bunch of staff members too, so they're going to turn that over, I guess, as if that's going to do anything. But you're right. It is kind of insane how like they do have that level of technology, and I wonder if that applies to like goaltending in the NHL. Can a goalie get that set up where Austin Matthews' shot can be mimicked and you practice against it? I'm guessing you can. I don't see why not. So yeah, I mean that's kind of fascinating how game planning and preparing for a pitcher, you can literally step in the cage and face him like day of and know kind of the stuff that's coming at you.
Yeah, that's your only chance, right? Because there was a time where, as Steve says, it hasn't been in a very short period of time. The pitching has just taken a quantum leap, right?
Big time.
It's just the way they've developed pitchers and gotten them stronger, and thus gotten them to be able to push the ball with more velocity and more spin and crazier spin rates and crazier sweeps and angles. For all of that, the batters have had to try and keep up, and there's not a lot of ways to do it outside of, hey, let's go into a simulator and watch this guy pitch. And I think basically every team, most of the Jays have one of those things in their cage where you can essentially program in the guy. You can see him essentially a lifelike image of him coming at you with his pitches so that you have some idea what you might be seeing out there in real life.
Yeah, but it's almost there's a part of me that's, it's definitely valuable. I'm not downplaying that at all, but it's like playing sim golf where when you're just breathing easy and you know what's coming, 100 miles down the middle of the plate. Okay, that's one thing. Step out there with 40,000 people in front of you, and you don't actually know what's coming. Or it is a human on the mound, and he may miss and hit you right in the head if you're not prepared for it, right? It's a little bit different. It's like sim golf. You get out there, and all of a sudden you really see the pond in front of you. It changes your mentality a little bit. All right,
Yeah.
we've got best bets coming up later in the hour. Dave's going to look into his crystal ball. I got a couple of more than likelies I'm going to throw out as well. OverDrive continues up on YouTube Live.
Back to Overdrive with Hayes, Noodles, and the O-Dog.
All right, best bets coming up a little bit later in the hour. We've got Jays Sox tonight, National Bank Open continuing, the FedEx Cup playoffs beginning tomorrow down in Memphis, which is great. Again, we saw Kawhi last night. The Lakers have been sold for a lot of money. And, we're waiting for the NHL camps to open up in a few weeks. I saw recently, actually, because I don't know if people are bracing for this, Dave. I know you're aware of this, but they're going to 84 games this year in the NHL, right? Like it's 82 to 84 this year. So they're adding games to this to the schedule, which gets them started in September this year, which is great. So be into camp a little bit earlier and get the NHL season started a little bit earlier. So with that in mind, a lot on the horizon here. Leafs and Raptors soon to be in town. Kawhi's already here. I wonder when Austin Matthews could roll through back through town. We thought you'd kind of look in your crystal ball here. You've got a little bit of a list for us in terms of projections. You can take the floor here. Explain where you're going with this, and I will respond to it all.
Yeah, you could call them projections. I'm going to call them expectations.
Okay. And
I'm going to put since we're talking about ownership a lot today with the Lakers changing hands. Obviously, the guy who owns the Dodgers once owned the Lakers, now is selling them to a couple of other guys who now are going to be owning the Lakers for $12 billion. If I'm Edward Rogers, Hayes, this is what I'm saying. If I'm Edward Rogers, I just took 100% control of MLSE. This is what I'm expecting for my money. Okay,
love it. Love it. Let's do it. Let's see. Put on your ownership hat and tell me what needs to be expected this year.
So my number one thing, and this is going to change. This will set the tone, Hayes, of the entire sports year in Toronto and beyond. It's Austin Matthews starting to act like a captain and getting back to scoring 50 goals.
Okay, so it's interesting, like, the idea of him acting like a captain, you're tying it directly to goal scoring. And I think you're probably right, because that is when he is most comfortable and feeling like he's contributing the most. It's not that he isn't capable of doing a lot more, which he is. Berube had him killing penalties. He's a very good defensive player. But in order for him to pop and likely feel emboldened in terms of leadership, it's got to be tied to goal scoring. That's why he's getting paid. There's other guys obviously blowing past him, but he's not getting a discount just because Macklin Celebrini's going to make a lot of money in a year and a half. Like Austin's still going to be a top 10 paid player in this league for quite until this deal expires, likely in the next 2 years. And in order for him to really make the impact that he's capable of doing, he does have to return to basically best scorer in the world territory. There was a time a few years ago where it was just expected. It was almost a formality. He was going to win the Rocket. I think he's got to get back into contention on that, and 50-plus goals would certainly do that. So I agree with that 100%. That should be a bare minimum expectation.
Yeah, to me, that's his best way of leading. And we all know, this team needed leadership last year, Hayes. There was, when you think about Stolarz calling everybody out in Game 6, and then, the idea that Matthews got, kneecapped by Gudis and nothing happened. I mean, all those, and there was a long list of other incidents and kind of, shrug and move on losses that did not sit well with anybody in that room. And there was a cry out for leadership. And maybe who the finger got pointed at? It got pointed at Craig Berube. And I think it's now Austin Matthews is, it's his responsibility as the highest paid player on the team and the guy wearing the seats to set the tone that year was not acceptable. Yeah. And this is going to be a different one.
No, you're right. A lot of the criticism was directed at the coach and the GM last year. Like, the players got off the hook in a lot of ways. Yeah. And that can't happen another year. Like, you got what you wish for if you're looking for new coaches, new GMs. You got basically a completely new staff running the operation, both behind the bench and in the front office, and you got massive turnover. But you're right. I mean, you look at the Vegas game, Vegas rolls through town. Mitch Martin's such a big moment, and they just were flat. They lost. They blew the game in Vegas prior, 10 days earlier. They had that game, and they let it get away from them. Remember, it was Matthews not really getting back in overtime, and it was Eichel, his man, that ends up winning it. There should be a lot on his plate in terms of him, and I don't know if he's capable of doing it. Being a raw leader, I just don't know if that's his DNA. Through 10 years, it wouldn't suggest it is. but it is your job to do it as the best player, captain or otherwise, and you do happen to have it. And I know the captaincy isn't worth what it used to be, or it doesn't represent what it used to be. We're just living in a much different world. And, of course, he needs his teammates and he needs everyone to be on the same page. But he's kind of responsible for the heartbeat of the room. It's got to be him.
Yeah.
And if there's a feeling that there's a crack in it, then that's on him to resolve the issue. And he's got to do it.
And if you're not going to be a rah-rah guy, that's fine. Just be a lead by example, no nonsense, all business. I take my profession very seriously, and watch me do it.
Yes, exactly. Which would get back to what the original point was: be the best goal scorer in the world, or reclaim that pursuit, because it's got to happen after 2 down years in that department. Okay, that's the first expectation. Get to number 2 on the list.
So number 2, look, if I'm Edward Rogers and Bobby Webster's made this what looks like a fairly high risk trade here, that's not a trade suddenly for Kawhi Leonard. I'm expecting big things from the Raptors, assuming this trade goes through, assuming Kawhi is not just in town for a tennis tournament this week, that he's in town and will be in town for training camp next month. I'm expecting the Raptors to get to the Eastern Final at a minimum.
Eastern Final at a minimum, and they're in a division with the reigning champs and the New York Knicks, who have not lost anybody, and the Sixers, who bring in LeBron James. Yeah, I mean, I think those are lofty goals. I think that's probably asking. I think it's reasonable to hope for that. Expectations might be a little bit of a stretch, in my opinion. Again, this was a team that last year, I think everything kind of went their way, broke their way. A lot of guys had really good years. Scotty was really good. RJ Barrett had the best year of his career. And they made the playoffs, and they pushed Cleveland to 7 games without any help whatsoever from Brandon Ingram. And that will change with Kawhi Leonard. I just look at New York, Philly. I think Cleveland's still going to be pretty good. I'm curious what Miami looks like with Giannis. Detroit's still a really good team. Like there's good teams in the East. So this trade alone, I'm not sure I'm going to get the Eastern Conference. I mean, top 6 is mandatory. You can't be in a play-in here once you make this acquisition. You can't go backwards from a year ago. And I think
they'll be top 6 for sure.
I think they will, as long as Kawhi's playing. I can grant you 25 game suspension. That's pushing it. If it's like 41 games, then all bets are off. If Ingram's not here and Kawhi's not playing the first half of the season. But I think you're right. If Kawhi's playing and healthy and fits in the way we believe he likely will, I think they're going to be a top 6 team in the East. So my expectation would actually be you got to definitely win a round. Like you got to get into the second round. You got to improve on last year. You're going a step beyond that. Do you think that obviously playing the role of ownership, that's your expectation? Playing your role of media, do you think that's realistic that they can do that?
I really think it is, because you talk about all these teams like Detroit. Yeah, they've had this incredible regular season, but they flopped big time in the playoffs.
They did.
I mean, Cleveland. I mean, if the Raptors would have gotten anything out of Ingram, they beat Cleveland, no problem. And heck, they didn't even have Quickly. Let's not forget they didn't have their best guard in the lineup. So, and then the Knicks, to me, I think it's just like championship hangovers are tough to overcome. There hasn't been a back-to-back team in a while. There's been eight different champions in the past 8 years. So take them out of the equation. Boston, the turmoil of getting rid of Brown changes things drastically. And then Philly, I mean, it's not going to be easy for Nick Nurse to make that thing work. We all know that stat about the usage rates of their top 5 guys. There's only 100% usage, in their top 5 guys last year added up to 140% usage, which is basically need for the ball, right? Need for the ball, a measurement for need for the ball or want of the ball. And so that's going to be a huge challenge for Nick Nurse, who's also fighting the Ontario courts over a very unjust tax problem that he's had here in Toronto. So Nick's got a lot on his plate.
I saw that.
And I just think the Raptors have one thing that I think is massively important that a lot of these other teams don't have. They've got an identity. They are a defensive juggernaut. Darko has, made that the number one priority, the non-negotiable on this team. And I think when you have that identity, that can win in the playoffs.
Yeah, and that is something that Kawhi Leonard is going to blend into beautifully. What that's his calling card, is being as good as he has become offensively, clutch plays, clutch shots against Philly, as we know, in 19, among others. The claw is because he shuts people down, and the best of the best. And at his age, can you expect him to shut guys down one-on-one for 36, 38 minutes like the best young players in the league? Maybe not, but I think he can shut down guys periodically. I think he could certainly take down a second option on any team in the NBA today. If Scotty's going to get the first gig at it, or first kick at whoever, is getting the predominant touches on the other side. So I'm with you. I mean, I think he fits in beautifully there. I do wonder about, Pirtle and the size of the team, in terms of the playoffs, and you get into a team that was a problem with, or was going to be a likely problem against Cleveland. I think it did kind of materialize, but that's going to still have to be addressed. It's
yeah.
And then famously, it was in 19 when they went out there and got Marc Gasol, and it immediately addressed it. And all of a sudden, you pushed Ibaka to the bench. You had Gasol playing starter minutes. He didn't play a ton. I think he played probably on average 30 minutes during the playoffs, something like that. But they're going to need some presence in the paint, in my opinion, between now and the playoffs. But if they can address that, and I don't know who that's going to be, then that would make me even more bullish on the idea that they absolutely can chase down a spot in the Eastern Conference Final. Okay, what else we got, Dave? That's two of your, what do you got, 3, 4, 5? Take it for as long as you want to go. What else you got?
I got 5 here. And number 3 for me is, if I'm ownership, I'm Keith Pelly in the CEO's office. Look, I heard all the complaining about Craig Berube, and Craig Berube's system is boring, and Craig Berube's system doesn't suit this roster, and blah, blah, blah. Now you got new management that's come in, and they've handpicked a guy in Jim Hiller who's an analytics guy who has, got a history working with some of these players when they were younger during his time as an assistant to Mike Babcock. And so I'm expecting Jim Hiller is going to lead this team back to the playoffs, because it's been a playoff team. Like last year was a blip. You have to believe that if you're running this place. And I believe that Jim Hiller is going to be a Jack Adams finalist because of it.
Wow. Well, it sets up for that in terms of the narrative, right? The Jack Adams, it either turns into a kind of lifelong achievement award for a guy who's been a great coach forever and has just never won it, or it's the new guy on the block that takes a team that missed the playoffs by a significant amount the year before and gets them into the playoffs, right? Rick Tocchet trying to do that. Dan Muse did that in Pittsburgh, or John Cooper and doing what he's doing in Tampa and what he did last year. So I think you're right that if they make the playoffs, Hiller will be a popular name, like a very, very popular name. Now, it'll come down to I think, individual play under the tutelage of Hiller. And this is where I think Matthews is linked to him. I think McKenna and how comfortable he is and how much of an impact he can have his first year also linked to a new head coach. But it's a great opportunity for Hiller to pursue that. So if they can get back to the playoffs, I think you're right that would almost be a formality that he will be in the hunt. Doesn't guarantee he's going to win it. But if you're talking be a finalist, that's a top 3 guy. They were one of the 3 or 4 worst teams in the league last year. Like, they were horrendous. Yeah. They were awful last year. Defensively, they were terrible. Their special teams weren't any good. Now, show me a good goalie, I'll show you a good coach. I linked, Hiller's pursuit of a Jack Adams to Austin Matthews. Probably it's more about Bob and Stolarz staying healthy and performing well, which he will not have a big say in. It's simply up to them in the goaltending department. But I'm okay with that. I can reason with that because it's a big opportunity for him. And John Chaika's, listen, he sold them on getting a gig, and he sold them on bringing in Hiller, because when they hired Hiller, it was not a stop the presses hire, right? It was not a, wow, I can't believe they got Hiller. Everyone was waiting for them to get Bruce Cassidy or someone of that kind of ilk. They were going with the ebb when the other people were going with the flow. So they stuck their neck out. It's a big opportunity for him to prove them right as well.
Yeah, which brings me to my 4th, because I agree with you. It's going to depend on this one thing more than any other thing, and that is that Sergei Bobrovsky turns back the clock, because we all know he's going to be turning 38 next month. We all know he's coming off a dismal year in Florida by his standards and basically anybody's standards. But we also know this, Hayes, past 5 years in Florida, even if he wasn't great last year, we obviously know he's won the 2 cups, he's taken the 3 finals, and he's averaged 53 games over the past 5 seasons. Leafs haven't had a 50 games starter going back to Freddie Anderson, Hayes. It's been a long time since they've had a guy that they could just bank on as the lock for all the important games, all the moments you really need him. He's there for you. Bobrovsky's going to have to be that guy. I expect him to be that guy if the Hiller thing is going to come true.
Yeah, no, I totally agree with that because you're paying him a premium. They gave him a 3-year deal. It's a Patrick Marleau deal, possibly.
Yeah.
And I think they know they're not getting anything close to 50 starts in year 3. They may not be able to guarantee it in year 2. They better get it in year 1. Like, you better get a premium performance from Bob year 1, because if you don't, that could be a sunk cost immediately, and that's trouble. So that I'm totally with you. That's a minimum expectation for sure for Sergei Bobrovsky. All right, what do you have?
And I think
go ahead.
No, just one last thing about Bobrovsky. Like we heard, Andy O'Brien did a great interview with Carlo and AK in the morning show, and they, Andy O'Brien had that very optimistic view. The new head of sports performance for the Maple Leafs, and obviously Sidney Crosby's longtime offseason trainer is Andy O'Brien, and he had that line basically that was very hopeful for Maple Leafs fans, which is that Bobrovsky's biological age is way younger than his chronological age, meaning he keeps himself in such good shape. He's such a consummate pro that, whatever it says on his birth certificate, he is performing at a much younger rate.
That's hopeful, and that's great, and that's a Maple Leaf employee saying that now. I wonder what he would say 3 weeks ago when he wasn't an employee, but okay. If you're a Leaf fan, you got to hope that that's true. I hear you. But
hey, if it's not true, then we're gonna find out pretty quickly.
Absolutely,
we've heard a lot of BS about the Leafs projections for Sergei Bobrovsky.
Big time. All right, number 5. Go ahead.
All right, then number 5 is, hey man, these are lofty expectations. I paid a lot of money to buy. If I'm Edward Rogers, I paid a lot of money to buy out Larry Tannenbaum's shares of this organization, and I want value for my money. And hey, I got a little lucky with the lottery. I'm hoping I get even luckier, and that Gavin McKenna wins the Calder Trophy.
Okay, I like that. I think that's reasonable. I mean, it's such a it's the most unique trophy available because the whole league isn't privy to it. Only a certain amount of players, a very small amount of players. So you're talking about battling with like 15 or 20 other guys, really. And you kind of know the big names. There can be a couple of outliers. Yes, he's young. He's going to be the youngest guy pursuing it. I don't think there'll be any other 18-year-olds in the league. But massive market, lots of offensive talent, a coach who's going to try to push the envelope on the power play, which I think he is willing. I think he is a guy that is capable of putting up numbers on that front. And first overall pick. Like, you take a guy first overall, Matthews, he won it. Wendell, I think Gary Suter won it in 85, but that wasn't just because Wendell was unbelievable his rookie year. So let's go. Let's try to make this a 3-pack, and I think that's 100% what the expectation should be. Yes, lofty goals, but why not for a player of his capabilities, where it's not like you're not competing against 700 other players.
Yeah, and two of the last three Calder winners, Schaefer and Bedard, were number 1 overall picks.
Yep, and it's crazy. The guy who didn't get it was Celebrini. He was the best of the bunch, probably, and that's right. Lane Hudson that obviously got it. Well deserved. I think Hudson earned that, but Celebrini was right there in pursuit of it too. It's not like he struggled. So recent history would suggest first overall pick, 18 years old, still capable of making a lot of noise. I love it. There you go. A little crystal ball action. Expectation list there for Dave Feschuk looking into the fall. Okay, we'll get to our best bets powered by FanDuel. OverDrive continues up on YouTube Live.
Back to Overdrive with Hayes, Noodles, and the O-Dog.
All right, Best Bets powered by FanDuel. Make your picks and assemble a same-game parlay in seconds on the FanDuel Sportsbook app. I'm going to look at the FedEx Cup playoffs. All right, it's actually a field of 69 players because Daniel Berger's not in it. This is where you got to find some sneaky value in a top 10. I mean, picking a winner's very difficult to do when you got such great players and it's a tough track. Hideki Matsuyama has kind of been lurking the last little while. He's playing very good golf. And Matsuyama's always a guy that, like, he's not going to get carried away with the moment. He's been on tour for so long. He's a Masters major winner. Top 10, you're getting plus 200. I'm going to put a little sprinkle on Hideki sneaking into the top 10 this week. You're getting plus money on Decky down in Memphis. So that's my play. I hit on Ricky Fowler a couple weeks ago. I'm going to hit on this top 10 bet. Best Bets powered by FanDuel. Same game parlays available for every PGA Tour event on the FanDuel Sportsbook app. Please play responsibly, 19 plus. Physically located in Ontario. So Jays Sox tonight. Okamoto back in the lineup. He's going to DH tonight. And Jose Soriano making his debut. Big possible debut. I mean, this guy could be a Blue Jay for another 4, 5, 6, 7 years. And this could be the first of many starts at the Rogers Center tonight.
Yeah, this is a good one to see, man. You're looking forward to watch that curveball do its magic because this guy throws a wild one.
Yes, he does. He'll throw a knuckle curve in there, right? And he induces a lot of ground balls. And his first start, it wasn't phenomenal. But let's see what he's got tonight. This is a big one tonight. You find a way to get a win this evening. Slowly but surely, like they're 2.5 games out of the playoffs. Maybe you're 2 out after tonight. And all of a sudden, you've won this series guaranteed. You're going for a sweep tomorrow if you can find a win tonight. That will be buzz-inducing for sure. The Jays can find a way to figure it out. All right, Dave, great stuff, buddy. Thanks for doing this as always. We'll catch you tomorrow.
Great seeing you.
There he is, Dave Feschuk of the Toronto Star. Thanks to everyone behind the scenes for helping out. We appreciate it. Everyone for tuning in today. TV, radio, podcast, web up on YouTube, live streaming soon up on Crave. We're out of here. Enjoy your evenings. Enjoy the games tonight. We're back tomorrow at 4 p.m. We'll chat then.